29. Jack stood on the beginning of the northbound on ramp of I-65. He had blown a reed on his chromatic honer and wanted to find another one. He figured that a trip to Nashville would yield one, and a walk through Showbud and Ernest Tubbs would be fun too. Besides, it was time to move around the fringes of Vanderbilt society and see what was new in hallucinogens. Maybe, if things went right, he might visit Kenny and Franklin and gather some mushrooms in the horse pasture. Marion bridled at the idea at first, but when Jack promised to go to the medical supply house and get a roll of 1/4 inch surgical hose, she relented. Jack stood there on the edge of the ramp with his sign and waited. The sign said Nashville on one side and Birmingham on the other. He always traveled to Nashville that way. He usually got rides straight through. The drivers liked his music and didn't really mind that he couldn't share the driving. Jack had tried to drive once, but it was too scary for him, so he decided to leave it to others. He was about to sit down on his backpack when an ancient rig of uncertain manufacture hissed to a stop. On the front bumper was painted in fading three-dimensional letters, Francis the Toad Smasher. Except for the bumper, the paint was worn off of every leading edge. The corpses of thousands of insects covered the louvers over the radiator. On the front of the box was a radioactive placard. On the door was a magnetic sign for Huntsville Laboratories. The trailer said a Dart rental. It was much newer than the tractor. An ageless man beckoned him to climb aboard. He had seen him before, but couldn't quite make the connection. Jack was surprised at this particular ride because in all the hitchhiking trips he had taken, 18-wheelers never picked him up. They just blasted past. As he climbed aboard, he noticed an owl painted on the side of the cowl behind the air cleaner. It was highly stylized set in a circle with strange writing under it. He also noticed a dream catcher in the opening to the bunk in the back of the cab. There was a paragraph of the strange writing on the dashboard. The writing looked vaguely familiar. He had seen it somewhere before when he was very young, but he just couldn't recall where he had seen it. A coin silver owl adorned the wiper motor, above the windshield. The driver looked very familiar to him, but he couldn't make the connection as to where he had seen him before. Hanging on the recorder was an old yellow caterpillar hat with the crown burned out of it. Everything else in the cab had a patina of great age and long use. Thank you for picking me up. Thank you for needing a ride. I don't think I have ever seen anything like your truck before. You probably never will again either. There is only one like it, and this is it. Are you going to Nashville? Eventually, but I have to drop my load in Oak Ridge. The rig accelerated to highway speed, quickly and smoothly. The mechanical din in the cab was deafening as it picked up speed. Jack wondered how anyone in his right mind could ever want to drive a truck for a living. As the truck settled into a steady cruise, the noises took on their own voices. There was a high piercing whistle that changed pitch as the slope of the terrain changed. There was a howl that came and went as the engine's speed changed. There was the crackle of an unmuffled diesel exhaust that changed in volume as they passed stationary objects. There was a steady whine from under the floor that sang in a cultured contralto. Then there was a steady rhythm of the tires on the tar strips in the road. Another voice joined the chorus from the machinery. It was a chant in a strange, but vaguely familiar language coming from the driver. Jack became strangely sleepy. As he nodded off, he felt the silver owl looking at him. Francis started his song at the beginning, during the dream time, before men walked the earth. He started in the Ko language, which was spoken by the very ancient ones. He sang about the time of cold, when men hunted the giant frost beasts and built their lodges with their bones. He sang about the long march to the land to the east, over the ice and snow, following the rising sun. He sang of the time of fire and thirst and hunger and darkness. He sang of the endless grassland beside the endless forest. He sang in Cree and Ute and Chickasaw. He sang of the great prophet in the lake country. He sang of the white-haired men in the big canoes and the red-haired men in the leather boats. The machine accompanied him. He sang of a great nation under the trees. He sang of the prophet from the lake country who foresaw a time of pain, disease, and suffering. He sang of evil and greedy men coming from the south with a thirst for the yellow metal and the fall of the great nations to the south. He sang of chaos and disagreement. He sang of betrayal. He sang of the prophecy of wealth beyond imagining and the fall and exile of the nation under the trees. As Jack dozed, he understood every word to the depth of his soul. Every tribe has its time in the sun. Then another one takes its place. As one tribe waxes, others wane. The young grow old and live in legends. We lived on the edge of the ice, at the edge of the world. We were the people, the children of the earth. The mother gave us life and being. We gave the mother ourselves. We live forever. We came from the dream time. We go to the dream time. We hunted creatures, large and small. Creatures hunted us. Everyone, man and beast, in his place, as it should be. We rise, we fall. We live, we die. As it is, as it was, as it should be. Each has his time in the sun. The earth gives us each just what we need, just when we need it. We went across the ice and found more land. When the ice went away, no more could come. Some stayed behind. We missed them. We took what we needed. Never more. Our families grew into tribes. Our tribes became nations. We filled the new land. Our friend, fire, betrayed us, as friends sometimes do. The world became dark, with choking smoke. Women mourned their men and children. Men mourned their lives. Our friend fire was greedy. He ate it all. We could count our bones. As we hunted for anything, we fought among ourselves. We learned hate, to learn love. Our mother came back to suckle us, to sing her song. We listened and obeyed. Fire was again our friend. We took care. We wandered the new land. Some tired of wandering, and put up lodges. Some were restless, and wandered. Nations again prospered. By the sea, from ice to ice, nations prospered. In the mountains, shrouded in ice and clouds, nations prospered in the grassland. Without end, without measure, a great nation sprung up, like brother squirrel's acorn. In the endless wood, like the oak, it became great. Under the trees, numbered like the leaves, from the lakes to the warm salty water. We made a nation, from the nation in the grassland. They brought us herbs, and the hide of the buffalo, from the nations beyond the warm salty water. They brought us beads, and cloth, and herbs, for time without measure. Strangers sojourned among us. Some stayed and took wives, and lived out their lives among us. Some left. We loved them and taught them all. Great red-haired men came, in vessels of hide. They taught us about the stars, and their cycles. They brought us gifts from the sea, and stories of the great land beyond, with great lodges of stone. Their children grew up wise, and were great storytellers. Other men with yellow hair game. They were strong and brave. They brought us stories of great deeds and lands of fire and ice. They came in great canoes. They gave us the bow and the arrow. Their children were large and brave in the hunt. There were men in boats, taking fish. They came ashore for water. They were strange. They came with the sunshine. They gathered fish. They dried fish on the beach. They didn't trade. They didn't take wives. Only a few who were all stayed. Their sons and grandsons came. The few who stayed went back when they were better, or died on the beach. 30 built their lodges with their bellowing. Jenny Jones was on the TV when the phone woke him. He groped his way across the room and picked it up. Low. Benny? Beach. Yeah. Ish. You sound terrible. Yeah. Ish. I got the thing you needed. It sounds like I called just at the right time. Are you up to giving me a ride out there? I had chemo yesterday. I have to hold on to the floor to keep from falling off. Oh yeah, the washing machine is coming soon, too. How close does the bus come? To the end of Apostle. How far from your place? Let's see. About a mile or so. It's kind of hilly. That's okay, I'm used to walking. Do you remember the directions I gave you? It's easy to get lost up here. I'll be okay. You sure? No problem. Okay, see you soon. I got to hurry or I'll miss the bus. Benny stumbled back to the couch. They were into the makeovers on TV. Benny picked up the remote and surfed for better fare. He now understood the need for cable. He made a mental note to call the cable company and ask for the premium package. With over 100 channels, there was nothing of import on. He settled on C-SPAN, where Congress was haggling over a water project in New Mexico. Arizona was against it, as the water that was being caught and diverted was water that normally flowed to Arizona. It was small as water projects go, but it had large friends on both sides. The rhetoric and posturing were a great anesthetic. Benny nodded off again. The droning voices turned into flowing water, and he was back in a hutch in Vietnam during monsoon season. 3 sailors and 2 Marines were with him. There was a poker game going on. Benny had just folded a losing hand. The pot contained about $50 in scrip and a Zippo lighter. Benny had about $200 in scrip in front of him. The Zippo belonged to one of the other sailors. He had a huge smile on his face. It looked like his luck was changing. There was a loud thump and the lights went out. Benny woke up on the floor, groping for a pistol that wasn't there. Someone was knocking gently on the door. It took a minute to get the rest of the way out of the hutch and find the door, but Benny got up and answered it. Marjorie was at the door. Hey, sailor, want some pot? You got tie stick? What's that? Forget it. Ask your parents next time you talk to them. They will fill you in. Oh, something from Nam. Yeah, I have some Colombian. I think it's stronger than anything you've had before. I tried some, and it knocked me on my ass. If it will make me feel better than I do now, that's all I care about. I hope you have some quick food, because in about an hour, you will be hungry and too confused to cook anything. Great. I've lost a lot of weight. I only eat 2 days a week. The rest of the time, I'm puking my guts out. This should fix it. Do you have any tin foil? Yeah, somewhere. I'm still learning where Miranda kept stuff. It might take a minute or so to find it. I can help if you want me to. I'd really appreciate it if you did. Here's the foil. Here are some straws. This will make things much easier. I can see that this stuff must be too strong for a joint. A pipe burns more evenly, and the smoke is cooler and easier to hold. You'd cough half of it away with a joint. In that case, here are some spare aerator screens for the kitchen faucet. They'll make a nice grate. I'll get more for the faucet next time I go to the hardware store. There you go, a first-class pipe. You got any matches? Yeah, over by the fireplace in the family room. We aren't there yet? You're the first woman that has been here that didn't know Miranda. Does that bother you? I don't know. I wish I would have known her. She had the good taste and good sense to marry you. She must have been wonderful. Yeah, I am glad that she's not here now to see me like this. It would hurt her a lot. She promised to stay with you in sickness or in health, didn't she? She would have stayed. There's no doubt. She never knew about the cancer, did she? I meant to tell her. I really did. Why didn't you? I didn't want to appear weak to her. I felt that it was my duty as her husband to protect her and take care of her. I even failed at that. I wasn't home when she died. I was out of town on business. Were you really transacting business? Unfortunately, I have to dash your romantic notion. I was working. I was always working. This is the longest time since grade school that I haven't been working. I am thinking of retiring. I've got it going. Come on, take a hit. You know that I haven't had this stuff in 30 years. Do you want to live forever? Today I wanted to die. I know. That is surely some strong pot. Jack said it was mostly pollen. What wasn't pollen was flowers. I've got to sit down. Here, have another. I hope the washer guys are late. I don't think I could cope if they came now. You aren't even really buzzed yet. Wait, I'm more buzzed than I've been before. While you're still ambulatory, we should go back to the kitchen and sit down. We really don't want to have to hunt for the kitchen when the munchies hit. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Benny stood up and felt the pull of gravity on his blood. He steadied himself on Marjorie. Marjorie giggled. Together they moved to the kitchen. Marjorie rummaged around and found some Danish. Here's some complex carbohydrates. This will help with your energy deficit. I've been living on those and soup. These look homemade. They are. One of the ladies at church makes them. She brings them over twice a week. These are really good. I told her that the first time I had them. It really cheered her up. Why, no, I really owe those people a lot. They have kept me alive and sane through this. They also helped me remember Miranda and mourn her properly. You must really miss her. I feel guilty for not being here enough for her. The people at church tell me that she really didn't have time to be lonely, but I know differently. If she was just half as lonely at night as I was in all those hotel rooms, I didn't deserve her. Don't be so hard on yourself. We can't go back to the past. I don't know. The past keeps coming back to me. I wish it were the pleasant moments, but it's not. I'm back in the Navy, doing gunboat diplomacy at people who couldn't care less. We were intruders that didn't have a clue as to what was important to them. That's why they fought so hard. I really believed the government line when I went over there. I was gung ho. Then things happened to me and to those I cared about. The map stopped representing the territory. Those generals were just killing for the sake of killing. The people on both sides were dying for nothing. No, I take it back. They were dying to fatten LBJ's wallet. We were killing for stockholder dividends. We were using as much equipment and supplies as possible. Spray and pray marksmanship. Phantom jets against single snipers. We even carpet bombed rice paddies and empty jungle. I couldn't drink it away. I couldn't numb myself with drugs enough to make it go away. I kept it at arm's length by working all the time. When I would wake up screaming, Miranda would be terrified. It spooked the kids. I got a job that required travel to spare them the terror at night. When I was home, I was too tired to dream. I didn't know that the Navy did much there. Diplomacy at people who couldn't care less. We were intruders that didn't have. Our job was to get the Marines in and out by water when it was needed. The Coast Guard was there too. The war was worse from the water. We were perfect targets. It's over now, though. It's not. Just about everyone I knew that went there got some kind of cancer. Most of the ones that saw combat have sleep disorders or are actively drinking or are strung out on drugs. It's not over for them. It will never be over as long as they're still alive. Have you ever thought about the suicide rate among them? I'm too young. Yeah, Miranda was about your age when our first child was born. My youngest daughter is about your age. I'm 27. Okay, my oldest daughter is your age. Where are they? I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. You mean that you have no contact with them? They hate each other. Why? They didn't want to share my attention. They didn't think that there was enough of me to go around. Are you sure that's the reason? With my family, as with anything else beyond work, I'll never be sure about anything. What do you mean by that? My children are strangers to me. I never realized the importance of taking time to get to know them. I spent all my time chasing the almighty dollar. When I was home, I was too tired and too cross to interact. Was it the dreams? Yeah, I worked to hide from them. If I was awake and working, I wasn't dreaming. Now, the dreams fill a lot of my time because I'm too sick to fight them. Have you ever thought about therapy? What can a therapist do about my 11 months and 26 days of hell? Marjorie refilled and lit the makeshift pipe and handed it to Benny. Benny took a hit and handed it back to Marjorie. They both started coughing simultaneously. Then they started to laugh. Suddenly, Benny was transported back to Hugh, sitting in the room behind the music store with Chi on, smoking Thai stick. The street noises could be heard through the curtain and the store. Then he was back home in Sterling Forks. Here am I, an old man, and you haven't changed at all. You look like you saw a ghost. I just did. Who was it? The girl from Hugh? Gee, I'm sorry. Don't be. You told me I looked like her. Now more than ever. It's uncanny. Is it me or the pot? It's probably a little of both. Am I freaking you out? No, I assure you, it's entirely self-inflicted. If I were alone, I would be freaking out worse. I am so glad that you stayed around here to smoke with me. Remember, I freaked out first. Yeah, I guess you did. That really spooked me. You never warned me that you wore prosthesis there. I really didn't remember you asking. It never occurred to me to ask that question. I mean, how silly it would sound if I asked you if your manhood was real. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't. If it had happened to someone else, I would have thought it was a great practical joke. but I am the one person that would freak out about it. No, make that two. My roommate Charlene would get even more hysterical. She has less control over her emotions. Marjorie sat and stared out into space for a while. A lone tear ran down her cheek. She reached up and brushed it away. Benny, when I saw you in the bar in Nashville, I was going to do a screw and screw. I have this drug that erases the last 2 hours of memory. I was going to take you to my room, fuck you stupid, shoot you up with the drug, take your money and run. After I talked to you, I realized that we shared something deep. I realized that we need each other to help deal with our demons. What demons can a pretty young woman have that would be so hard to live with? When I first came to town to work in the campus clinic, I took a shortcut through the park. As I was going under the tracks, I got grabbed, dragged into the bushes, beaten, and raped. He left me naked and unconscious in the middle of the park. The police gave me a hard time and really didn't pursue the case. I still wake up screaming sometimes. I take it out on the men I meet. I have been a sexual predator, preying on the men I find in bars. I leave them dazed and confused, broke, and extremely embarrassed. I had every intention of doing it to you, but you showed me something I needed to see. You showed me that there are still good men in the world and that you needed me. When your prosthesis came off, I had a flashback. You see, Charlene and I found the rapist. We took away his manhood and left him dazed and confused in the same place he left us. Since then, I have had these feelings of remorse and guilt at what we had done to him, even though he was the scum of the earth. Now I understand why you curled up into a ball and made animal sounds. I was trying to die, but I didn't know how. I haven't worn the prosthesis since Nashville. Why not? I haven't left the house except to take my medication. Why should I wear it? Where is it now? It's upstairs on my nightstand. That's a strange place for it. That's where I put it when I took it out of my pocket when I came home from Nashville. You mean that you didn't put it back on when it came off? Shit. It still hurts to pee. The tube is supposed to be removed gently. When you freaked out, you threw it across the room. The tube didn't get a chance to come out gently. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. That's okay. It forced me to deal with being a eunuch. To me, you're still a man. To the government, I still am too, because I didn't do the whole process with the counseling and graduated surgeries. I don't know what would happen if I were arrested for something. It would be fun to watch the confusion in the jail. Dealing with the mirror is the hardest part. How so? I can't wear certain clothes anymore without the prosthesis. I am glad that I lost my hair because I look female from behind. Stand up. Let me see. See, you probably would look good with a little fixing up. You gotta be kidding. No, seriously, you have a great figure, except no boobs. Sorry, that came out wrong. I'll bet you don't fill an A cup. We're talking about you, not me. No, you gave me an idea for therapy. Let's change roles. Miranda had some wigs for times that she didn't feel like dealing with bad hair days. There are some of my son's clothes from when he was about 12 that would just about fit you. It could be fun. You're a crazy old man. Eunuch. Whatever. What's going to happen if the people from Sears show up with my washer? It all depends on how we react to it and how we're dressed at the time. Hell, you need eyebrows anyway. You look strange without them. I'll go easy on the makeup too. Gee, thanks. Benny felt the pot when he stood up. He grabbed a chair to steady himself and laughed at his unsteady posture. Marjorie seemed unfazed by it and bustled around, straightening the kitchen. Together they went upstairs. Suddenly, Marjorie seemed very small and fragile to him. She looked like one of his daughter's friends from school. He found it difficult to believe that he found her in a bar in Nashville, and she had intended to hustle him when he met her. He was glad that Miranda wasn't around to see this, and he wouldn't have to explain it to her, especially the makeover. He felt more than a little guilty and vaguely uncomfortable. Was it him, or was it the pot? He really didn't want to analyze it. This young woman actually liked him and accepted him, maimed as he was. He smiled as he walked past the hallway mirror. He still looked like a cancer patient, but he looked happy and hopeful for the first time since he came home. He went into the closet in the spare bedroom and dug in the box of old kids' clothes. A flood of memories, without recollection, stirred him as he dug through the box. Most of his son's clothing seemed too big or too young. If he followed possible impulses with Marjorie, he would feel like a child molester. She was young enough to be his daughter, easily. Marjorie stirred those impulses well, too. She seemed to enjoy stirring them. This is the house I had built for Miranda. How can I be doing this? He thought, while trying to prevent tears. Marjorie explored Miranda's wardrobe. The walk-in closet had a lot to offer. There were labels from Rome, Paris, and New York. There were also interesting garments from the Sudan, Ghana, Egypt, and Turkey. She noticed shoes to match most of the garments. There were 8 wigs of various hairstyles on a dressing table in various shades of blonde. The clothes seemed too small to put on Benny. The biggest dress in the closet was a size 8. Most of them were 6s and 7s. Marjorie thought about how they would look on Charlene, who could make a living as a size 6 model if she chose to do it. She could move in here and Benny could make her happy. How could she do a makeover on Benny with these clothes? What in the hell am I doing? She thought. I'm young enough to be his daughter. He would feel terrible about a serious relationship with me. Sadly, she walked out of the closet and sat down on the bed. Her eye caught the prosthesis on the nightstand. A mixture of fascination and revulsion coursed through her mind as she looked at it. The memory of her revenge sent a pang of guilt through her. Her medical training demanded that she examine it, even though she didn't want to think about such things. She was conflicted. One part of her wanted to scream and run home. Another part of her wanted to handle it and examine it. Yet, another part of her screamed at her for what she and Charlene did to the rapist in the park. Tears welled up in her eyes and her body shook. She didn't want Ben to see her like this. He would think the wrong things and maybe get depressed. She couldn't stand the idea of Ben getting depressed. She also didn't want to appear as a lightweight. She forced herself into a cheerful demeanor. It hurt. She reached over and picked up the prosthesis. The plastic hose hung down from the rear of the attachment point. As she turned it over, the thought occurred to her that the catheter was too long and must have been terribly uncomfortable, especially as it was being pulled out. She was surprised by the fact that the inside part was bigger than the outside part. It was designed to be held in place by the natural tension of a vagina. As she squeezed the inside part, the outside part expanded a little and held the expansion. She squeezed again and it expanded a little more. She wondered if Benny had tried that feature yet, or if he had the muscle control to squeeze it. As she stopped squeezing the outside slowly contracted. Cool, she muttered to herself as she looked at it. It had a triangular flap separating the outside from the inside. There was hair on the flap. She marveled at the elegance of it. She lay back on the bed and slipped her pants down. She noticed that she was moister than she expected. She inserted the anchor point of the prosthesis into her vagina. It slid into place almost magically. The catheter stuck out, but otherwise it looked like part of her. She squeezed with her pelvic floor muscles and it moved. It also felt really good. The second and third squeezes were involuntary. She stood up and felt the weight of the distended member pulling at her. It felt good, even though she really didn't want to admit it. Several more involuntary contractions made it grow to its limit. It was almost as intoxicating as the pot she had smoked. Just then, Benny walked into the room. Hey, how did you get that thing to work and still stay in? I thought sexy thoughts. No, seriously, I could never get that thing to get hard. All it ever did was pop out. Then you can squeeze them. Yeah, but I can't control it. That takes practice. I wish I could bring myself to doing it. I still have trouble looking and touching. Having a vagina is still quite new to me. I remember some of the exercises that they taught Miranda for Lamaze, but my mother taught me things for pleasing men. I should teach them to you so you can manipulate your prosthesis and maybe please a woman. What woman wants to be sodomized by a piece of plastic? One who loves you for yourself. That thing looks better on you than it does on me. Are you game for the makeover? Yeah, I guess so. The only thing I could find that might work is this knit dress. You are much larger than your late wife. How about blue jeans and a t-shirt? That way I would have clothes that fit me. Oh, you want the casual look? Yeah, Miranda always looked good in jeans too. Well, It's worth a try. Marjorie went into the closet and returned with a wig and a bra. With a great deal of adjustment, she harnessed Benny into it and stuffed some socks into the cups. Benny retrieved the blue jeans he had discarded earlier and slipped into them. Marjorie put the wig on Benny's head and arranged it into an acceptable position. Benny found his topside ears and slipped them on. Marjorie opened the makeup case and went to work. Christ, I look like my mother. Oh! The conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Marjorie pulled her pants on and put on a sport jacket. She rolled the sleeves a little because they were too long, but it had the desired effect and made her look very masculine. Benny laughed at this sudden transformation. They went downstairs to accept delivery of the washer. 31.